The best little derby in the West just keeps defying its name, getting bigger every year.
The thing is crazy. It's grown to 8 days now.
And more than $120,000 in cash and prizes. We'll see the Open Derby action coming up. And this is the original home of the Red Shirt Futurity for horses that need a little extra training time. It was started because a member's son was being red-shirted in football.
And he said, you know what, why don't we do that? Why don't we promote, the longevity of the horse? And we were all about that.
That and the 4-year-old Derby here in NAMPA are giving owners an incentive to slow things down.
We've done this the last couple years now, and it's really been good for us with our training program.
Coming up on Your Horse Inside and Out, sponsored by Boehringer Ingelheim, we're going to talk about horses and eyelid lacerations.
And in Training Secrets, NRHA professional Matt McDowell explains why performing a good turnaround doesn't begin with what your horse's front feet are doing, but where your horse's hips are.
The Western horse was a master of a hard world, pitted for centuries against half-wild bovines, ferocious predators, brutal weather, and the sheer size of the country they had to cover. Their descendants are still nimble, fast, and courageous, with a rock-solid disposition that makes them beloved the world over. In this next half hour, you'll see them in action here on Horse of the West.
Welcome to the best little derby in the West from the Ford Idaho Horse Park in Nampa, the heart of what they call Treasure Valley.
The Best Little Derby in the West is one of the bigger shows we do on our horse park calendar that runs through March through November. They take over right around 500 stalls. We've got about 80 RVs on site. They take a full 9 days, so it's a very large event, very versatile. We're running 24/7, 7 days a week for about a week and a half at a time. So we love having them here.
This is our 5th year that we've been actually having the Best Little Derby in the West, and very excited about it. It's been a lot of fun. The thing is crazy. It's grown to 8 days now. We're doing 8 days. Now we're getting done a little earlier. Guys are getting a little bit of time to get in the pen. We're not running late nights, so we're a little more relaxed. It's kind of nice that way, but just a great turnout.
Also part of the Best Little Derby, which is for 4-, 5-, and 6-year-old horses until next year when 7-year-olds will be eligible as well. They run the Red Shirt Futurity. This is a special concurrent class with its own purse for horses that did not compete in a futurity. It's an idea that's catching on.
And it's kind of neat because now there's other places around the country that are running red shirt, red shirt futurities, derbies.
It's a very neat thing. It's neat for horses like that are super talented, that maybe weren't pushed so hard to go in the futurity. I happen to have 4 or 5 4-year-olds that are all eligible that just came to me by different circumstances, so it's nice for the owners to have something to show them in that's a leveled competition.
Travis Wiggin of Mount Green, Utah is showing extra See a Doctor in the Red Shirt Futurity, and he earns a 218 to get things rolling.
We got him at the end of March, and he actually just got shipped maybe about 5 days before this horse show, so didn't have a lot of time to get to know him. That's the best part, is to be able to take him out and show him one, two-handed, whatever you choose, help him get some confidence, maybe win a check on him.
They also run a 4-year-old only class in the Best Little Derby. It too has a purse of its own and is one more way they give owners and trainers an incentive to take it slowly with horses that may need more time to develop. These horses can have shown in futurities, but this gives them a chance to run at their own purses without necessarily having to compete with the older horses, though they can enter both classes. Gabe Hutchins of Joseph, Oregon earns a 217 riding Spot on My Jersey by Yellow Jersey in the Level 3 Derby and the 4-year-old class.
That's one we've kept back for this purpose, for this horse show, and a couple of the other 4-year-old futurities this year. He was making a nice horse early on, but we just felt like he wasn't going to be a futurity horse prospect, so we just took our time with him, and today's his first time showing. He was really good in the pen for me today.
Martine Padilla of Ione, California is riding Plain Spooky by NRHA $5 million sire and Hall of Fame member Smart Spook.
He was very honest today, and he's been just right there, along with the program. And we try not to push him really hard. We're just trying to keep it conservative for right now. But we know that he will have a great future,
Austin Seelhof is one of a couple of riders that made this 17-hour trip from Cochrane, Alberta to be here in NAMPA. He gets a big ride on North Sail Solitaire by the leading sire of all time, Topsail Whiz. They earn a $225 to take the lead in the Open Derby.
He's a really fun stud horse. I got him about a year and a half ago. He's got great owners, Marie and Lyle Whitmarsh. They're good friends and good clients of ours, and I showed him all last year, and he always kind of was in the top couple, so he won one Derby for me, and hopefully tonight he can win another one.
Shawna Sapergia also made the haul from snowy Cochrane, Alberta, and says getting south to warmer weather has been great.
The facility is fantastic. They're so accommodating and so friendly and stuff like that. The show committee is exceptional. They just do a great job.
Sean is riding a homebred son of Colonel Remy named One Gun Remington that did well with limited showing in his futurity year, but he is still eligible for the 4-year-old only class, and she is glad for that opportunity.
Lots of times 4-year-olds can step up and compete against the 5- and 6-year-olds, but sometimes, you know, if they just need a little bit more experience or something like that, the 4-year-old class is fantastic for them.
In this case, Shawna's 4-year-old One Gun Remington does step up, earning a $222, which will put them in second in the Derby. We'll see if Austin Seelhof and North Sail Solitaire can hang on for the win at the Great Western Reining Horse Association Best Little Derby in the West, and who will ride off with that red shirt futurity title. That's just ahead. Also, Dr. Joe Carter shows us the complexity of dealing with equine eye injuries, and Matt McDowell heads to the training pen to talk about hip placement in the turnaround. Be right back.
You're watching Horse of the West on RFD TV, presented by the Oklahoma City Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Welcome back to Horse of the West and the Great Western Reining Horse Association Best Little Derby in the West and Red Shirt Futurity from Nampa, Idaho. Ryan Anderson of Wilsaw, Montana is riding Pretty Check's design by Pretty Peppy Check. He says this horse has been a family project.
My brother had this horse as a 2, maybe a little of his 3-year-old year, and sold it to one of our clients in Montana. And my dad had him as a 4-year-old, and I've had him as a 5- and 6-year-old now.
Ryan and Pretty Check's design earn a $219.5. This horse will get another shot next year in the Best Little Derby in the West, which will include 7-year-olds in 2020. Babies Steppin' Out by NRHA Hall of Fame member and $10 million sire Wimpy's Little Step is our next horse, ridden by Kyle Kellmer of Battleground, Washington. These two mark a $220 to take over second place. Adam Hendrickson of Windsor, Colorado earns a $218 on Custom OLENA by NRHA Hall of Fame member and $6 million sire Smart Chickalina.
Really nice horse. We had a tough go at the futurity last year, but that's a super nice horse, and we're starting to come together. Just had a couple little bobbles today, but that's going to be a really good horse.
But Adam does even better on his second horse, 5-year-old You Gotta Be Dreamin' by NRHA Hall of Fame member and $5 million sire Magnum Chick Dream. These two are the level 3 champions at the NRHA Futurity, the horse's 3-year-old year.
This is definitely by far the best show I've had on him since then. It just all kind of came together. We didn't show him a lot last year, just showed him a couple of times, and just wanted to give him a break, and thought we'd try to bring him back this year and show him a little more.
Adam says his horse is well matched to the Big Pen here in Nampa.
Really nice horse, big horse. It's kind of deceiving because when you run on that horse, he is so big, he covers a lot of ground really fast. So to make it look like you're running, I got to go really fast. I love coming to this horse show. I didn't win it this year, unfortunately, but it's a great horse show to come to. Really good facility. Everybody has a blast coming here.
Adam and You Gotta Be Dreamin' come away with a $220 from the judges here in Nampa, which will put them in a tie for second with Kyle Kellmer. Jordan McBurney of Arlington, Washington is riding a pair of horses. This is Mizinya by NRHA $1 million sire Gonna Trash Ya. She's entered in the Derby, the Red Shirt Futurity, and the 4-year-old class. Jordan says her husband Sean has been riding this mare and just turned her over to Jordan after having some issues at the National Reining Breeders' Classic.
4th time I've rode her. She was great. She marked a 21. I was super pleased. I couldn't have been happier for her first time in the pen.
Jordan's second horse is by Whiskey and Diamonds. This one is entered in just the Derby.
I've marked anywhere from a 20 to a 23.5 on him. He's a consistent horse.
That puts Jordan McBurney in 4th and 5th in the Best Little Derby. Jackson Porth of Idaho Falls is on a 6-year-old gelding by NRHA $1 million sire Paleface Dunnett named Sparkin' Dunnett. This is a horse Jackson had his eyes on since the horse was 3.
They got time to sell him. I had to have him in my barn, so I got another buddy of mine to buy him, and he's had him probably 4 or 5 months. He showed him in the rookie here, showed him all around this show, and this is the first time I've really put my hand down and went and showed the horse.
Sparkin' Dunnett comes through for Jackson Porth with a 2:23, which would take over second in the level 4, but Jackson is not entered in the level 4. Instead, he will take over the lead in level 3. Deanna Lally of Lake Stevens, Washington is riding a son of Whiskey and Diamonds named Whizzin' in the Wind. He was bred and started by cowhorse legend Annie Reynolds.
She showed him his 3-year-old year, and you know, she just makes such nice solid horses. They've got that good background to build on, and had a blast showing him last year, and this year he's starting out pretty good, so I'm pretty happy with him today.
Deanna Lally moves into second in the Derby with a 2:22.5. Finally, here's Nicole Hutchins of Arlington, Washington on a son of Paleface Dunnett named Face Chicks Love. They bought him just before the NRHA Futurity last year and opted not to show him until Nicole could get to know the horse a little better.
He's a 4-year-old, so he's a red shirt horse, and he's been a really awesome horse. I love him. I showed him. This is his 3rd time being shown, and he's just a super awesome, honest guy. Big turner, I struggle with shutting him off in his turnarounds sometimes. And so that was one of my main focuses. I really wanted to get shut off, and he did tonight. He listened, and he's really honest. It was a lot of fun. Run and stop big, got rolled back each time, and it was a blast.
Nicole and Face Chicks Love are also entered in the 4-year-old only class. And so their decision to hold off on the Futurity season pays off double. They win both with a 2:22.5. In the Derby, Nicole is just half a point out of first in levels 3, 2, and 1. With a 2:23, Jackson Porth and Sparkin' Dunnett will earn those 3 titles, and the level 4 championship of the Great Western Reining Horse Association Best Little Derby in the West goes to Austin Seelhof and North Sail Solitaire.
We just put Hammer down and he ran. I mean, I don't think he can actually physically go any faster than he did today. So I was really pleased with him. He came back to me every time really good. So.
And that last stop was freaking huge.
Yeah, it felt really good. That's one of those ones that you remember for sure.
Up next, we're headed to the training pen to learn about keeping your horse's hips in the right place in the turnaround. Don't ride off.
You're watching Horse of the West on RFD TV, presented by the Oklahoma City Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Okay, I want to start out by showing you the importance of hip control in the turnaround so the horse is using its correct hip and not ever letting the horse start out learning the wrong position in a turnaround. So we'll start with that. I'm just going to show you what I do to start my 2-year-olds and how to teach them, and then we'll go on and how to build speed and correctness. When I'm teaching the 2-year-olds to turn, the most important thing I want to get is that they use that hip. So before I ever start teaching a horse to turn, I'm going to teach them how to I don't do it till I have a lot of hip control. Hip placement on the turn is more important than the front feet movement. So I'm going to start with that, pushing the hip up underneath him and show you how to do that. When you push the hip up underneath, it comes into play in your turnaround and your lead changes and your lead departures. I want my horse to push his hip around without having to hold on to my horse. See how this horse here is pushing his hip around, but I'm not having to hold real hard to stop his forward motion. So very first, at the beginning of their 2-year-old, I want to get this hip. As soon as I feel this hip lead, I'm going to let them take a step and turn. As soon as they take a step, I'm going to push that hip right back into position. I want that always before and after the turn, that hip to go back to the inside. So first few months, I might not even get a whole turnaround. I want to feel if that hip stays in position on the turn. Here, that hip stayed in. I'm going to let him make a couple steps, and then I'm going to push his hip back to the inside and make sure that before and after he keeps that hip engaged. So now I'll do it again. I want to hip the inside. If his shoulder moves to the inside and starts to fall in, I can use my inside hand to move his shoulder out, lift the inside shoulder, put the hip to the inside, let him turn. Push the hip back in, let him walk out. Everybody trots their horse out of the turn and walks their horse out of the turn. The difference that I use is I like to two-track my horse out of the turn at the walk or the trot. So after the turn, I want them to make sure they're going the same direction as they were when they turned. So if I'm going to the right, I'm going to push the hip, turn to the right. Whether I go a full revolution or two, I'm going to push and make my horse two-track, get back in that frame to the right, okay? Same with the other side. So I push my hip to the left, wait till his hip's correct, turn him to the left, push him out to the left, okay? A lot of people talk about that inside foot, getting that inside foot to come back. If you notice what this does when you put a horse in a curl, this inside foot automatically is in the back position. See how it's back and the horse's hip is underneath? It makes that first step real clean. They can go right over the top with that first step. I'm not one that I'm going to use the inside rein. I don't like to put a lot of bend on my horses. I like to turn them straight. Don't get me wrong, you want that horse soft to the inside, but I don't want that horse to be looking and overbent. I feel if you overbend your 2-year-olds, what that does is it pushes the hip to the outside. You can see how that horse kind of rocked his hip to the outside? I like to keep them straight. I only want to see just a shade of that inside eye in the turnaround, and I use that outside rein to make them turn and to go, okay, for your speed. So I'm going to go there and I'm going to show you how I start to build that speed just a little bit. So after my 2-year-old's confidence, I don't like to have to hold on to my horse in the turn, first of all. I don't like to start my horse in the turn like this and have to hold on to them. I want them to have their own little motor and just turn. See how I'm not having to hold on to this horse? Okay, he's just turning. I don't want my horse to walk out if I put my leg on him. I want him to know that he can just turn, okay, and push the hip out and not ever have too much forward motion, okay? I think it's real important. If you let a horse start the turnaround program and get onto the outside pivot foot or push into your outside leg, it's a hard thing to fix. Later on, you'll have to come back and spend months of getting them to correctly jump onto the right foot. So I never let them from day one ever get into your leg or onto the outside pivot foot, their weight to the outside. So if you do this and you're just patient for the first month or two, you'll be surprised how these horses start turning sooner and without any pressure.
Your Horse Inside and Out with Dr. Joe Carter, sponsored by Boehringer Ingelheim.
Eyelid lacerations are a relatively common injury that happens to horses. They can get them hooked on their eyelids, they can catch them on bucket handles or knobs on their stalls. We did a show once on, making a stall safer just so these type injuries don't happen. This is Dr. Arnold from Oklahoma Equine Hospital, and she's repairing an eyelid laceration right now on this show horse. Dr. Arnold, what happened here?
So they actually have no idea the horse was safely in its stalls, bucket handles were wrapped, and they came in that next morning and this had happened. So no evidence as to what caused it.
Which is so frustrating, I know, from a horse owner standpoint. You think you've done everything right to prevent these type injuries and they still happen. Horses, my old saying is horses are born with 2 things on their mind, suicide and homicide, and this is one example of that. So this injury occurred, and so how do we fix these things?
So the biggest thing that we want to do is make sure that the eyeball has not been injured, so that's going to be any scratch to the cornea or total perforation. The next thing is we want to realign the conjunctiva and the subcutaneous tissue, and then really make sure that this eyelid margin right here stays intact, because that's going to help the eye distribute the tear film, and so that you don't get a dry eye afterwards.
We got to get her fixed. So explain to people what conjunctiva is. Isn't that the pink part of the eye?
Yeah, it's this pink billowy tissue that's underneath the eye, so it provides moisture and blood flow to the eye, and it's really important that you don't get any sutures that are going to scratch the eye, so they need to stay underneath that surface layer.
Eyelid lacerations are certainly a common injury that we see in horses. Anytime you have they look gruesome at first, but they can end up being pretty not that big a deal to the horse as long as you get them fixed right. So I'm Dr. Joe Carter with Your Horse Inside and Out.
Your Horse Inside and Out is sponsored by Beringer Ingelheim. Before making any decisions about your horse's health, be sure to contact your veterinarian.
Welcome back to Horse of the West. If you missed out on the best little derby in the West, you can plan a trip to the Fort Idaho Horse Park in Nampa October 6th through the 12th for the Low Roller Reining Futurity, and plan to spend a little time checking out Nampa and Treasure Valley while you're here.
Nampa has a lot of wonderful things that are available to people during their stay. Nampa is the gateway to the Sunny Slope Wine Trail, so anybody interested in wine tasting, we have many wineries and vineyards available for them to visit. We have wonderful restaurants in downtown Nampa. We would invite everyone to come and walk around our downtown area and check out some of the businesses there. The Warhawk Air Museum is located here in Nampa and is near the airport and is a wonderful place for an educational stop while you're here. Lake Lowell provides fishing opportunities. We are close to Boise, so there are many opportunities in Boise as well.
We've got a very versatile facility here. We have basically every single equine event under the sun, from dressage to reining, to rein cow horse, to cutting, to mini horses. If it fits in the building, we can do it.
And show manager George King says if you do come in October for the Low Roller Reining Classic, plan to do some shopping. They have more and more vendors every year.
Because when people walk in here, and you can see from behind me, you know what, they walk in and they go, oh my gosh, this is not your backyard horse show. This is the real deal. And this is what these vendors bring to us, you know, and it's, you know, and again, these guys keep coming back, and it's been a lot.
I'd like to thank Horse of the West TV and also Georgia Robin King with the Best Little Derby for hosting at the Fort Idaho Horse Park, and we hope to see you all again here soon.
Horse of the West will bring you complete coverage of the Low Roller Reining Classic later this fall. And in the weeks ahead, watch for the NRHA Derby. And for the first time, Horse of the West is headed to Minnesota for the North Central Reining Horse Association Futurity. Be sure to tune in. I'm Jennifer Reynolds. See you then.